I don't think there is any doubt that lithium battery power has got to be the best solution to provide a lightweight, efficient, high-powered and reliable battery source to keep us charged up while we're on the road. For years now, I have used and tested some of the iTechWorld lithium products in an under-bonnet application. 6 months ago, I went out and installed the latest product, the iTechWorld 120X Pro lithium auxiliary battery. Despite some of the controversy that these budget batteries create, I truly believe that I have tested this particular unit harder than anybody else since its release. But 6 months on, how has it performed? Now I know that many people believe that I am paid to sing the praises of iTechWorld products and only report back with positive findings, but this simply isn't the case. Now, I won't deny that iTechWorld did provide this 120X Pro unit to me for review and testing, but I had turned down an affiliate marketing deal with them to remove the incentive for sales. So let me say it again. I am not in a contract with iTechWorld. I do not have to do these videos and I don't receive a cent from them or any other affiliate marketing partner for testing or reporting back on these packs. Now, I've pushed this unit harder than any other battery that I've owned previously because I've tried to break it. We all know that a big thumbnail that says it failed will perform a lot better than this video. But just because it hasn't completely failed doesn't mean that it's worked perfectly either. So let's get this battery out and start the review. Now, I'll always start by outlining some of the conditions in which this battery has been used to provide some context, but also to demonstrate that, well, this battery has not been installed in a weekend warrior or in a vehicle that sits in the garage for most of its life. The 120X Pro was installed in February 2023 down in Victoria. It has since then been used every single day, as my family and I travel around the country full-time in our Land Cruiser and hybrid camper combination. Now, generally, the battery is primarily used to power our Waco 65-litre fridge, which is normally set to 3 degrees. But in addition to that, we have auxiliary lighting, 12-volt charging ports for my camera gear, along with a 1000-watt inverter, which charges things like MacBooks, drones, skateboards, and we even have that 12-volt oven. So that's how I normally use my 12-volt system in the vehicle. But as I mentioned earlier, I really went out of my way to put as much pressure and strain on this battery. So in addition to all of the normal 12-volt circuitry, we also added a lot of charging and equipment from our powerhouse of a camper and put this through the vehicle as well. Now, the majority of that equipment was 240-volt appliances that ran through the 1000-watt inverter. And this included things like charging our vacuum cleaner, more MacBooks, iPads and editing gear. We even went through and powered the hairdryer, a toaster, the Bluetti power station, and of course that power-hungry Starlink internet. I even went as far as intentionally drawing down the Bluetti power station just to make the vehicle charge it back up again. Over the last 6 months, I've been able to record my power usage and the way in which I use this battery through the Victron Connect Smart app. And this is connected to a shunt in the vehicle that's hooked up to the 120X Pro. Now, it's not a perfect, accurate representation of what's been going on, but it's a very good place to start. So we can see that at some point in this last 6 months, I've managed to draw 136 amp hours of capacity from a single life cycle. We also see that my average discharge is 64 amp hours and that I have drawn a total of 8,616 amp hours of capacity from this unit. Now, like I said, it's not a perfect representation, and the reason I say that is the Victron app provides a net charge or discharge figure. So while we're at camp and we're getting charged from our solar panel on the roof or portable panels we plug in, or even driving the vehicle, we're bringing power in. So if we're driving and have the 12-volt oven plugged in, the fridge compressor running and charging devices at the same time, we're still going to be bringing in a net charge, even though we're probably going to be discharging around 15 amps. So although 8,616 is the recorded capacity, there's probably hundreds, if not thousands more of amps that have been drawn from this battery. Now, I'll also go to say that the 120X Pro doesn't have any sort of bypass features. And what I mean by that is, say we're driving down the road bringing in 35 amps and we're discharging 15 amps, there's no way to bypass the cells in this battery. So those cells are being charged and discharged at the same time, which is absolutely terrible for cell longevity. But to keep things simple, let's use that 8,616 amp hours of drawn power. And to put this into perspective, this equates to about 71 total discharges of this battery in the last 6 months. Now, although I don't draw this pack down to 0% very frequently, we can also see from the Victron app that it has been depleted to 0% state of charge 6 times over, and that requires the 12-volt jumpstart pack to get it back online and charging again. I think it's fair to say that since I received this battery just prior to its official release, this 120X Pro unit has to be one of the most tested batteries on the market. But power usage is only one element of a battery test. Anyone can set up a constant discharge and recharge cycle with structured charging profiles in a climate-controlled room, but of course this is not how we've tested this unit either. This battery has been out in the real world getting tested as it should, and that means that we don't have any sort of structure to our discharge and charging profiles. We get charged whenever we can. Sometimes that's halfway through a charging cycle, maybe sometimes it's not. Sometimes it will stay at 20% state of charge for days on end as we struggle with solar and don't drive very far, and other days it will bounce between 80% and 100% state of charge on consecutive driving days. But the most important part of this test is that it has been mounted in one of the harshest possible locations, and that's in the engine bay of our Land Cruiser. This unit was installed in Victoria and has driven numerous conditions, both on and off-road. From the snowy mountain region, up steep road inclines seated next to a very hot and hard-working engine, the Lithgow four-wheel drive tracks, the Bridle track, the Glasshouse Mountains, Fraser Island, outback Queensland, in the humidity of the Daintree rainforest and the Bloomfield track, and of course famous Cape York. This battery has seen a lot and operated in temperatures ranging from 1 degree overnight to high 30-degree ambient temperatures during the day. From flat tarmac roads to top-end corrugations, I really don't think there is much more you could throw at a battery in 6 months. Overall, I think it's fair to say that I really have put this battery through its paces in the time frame I've had it for. Whether you've got a dedicated four-wheel driver, a four-wheel drive tourer, a full-time on-the-road towing vehicle, or even a daily driver, the conditions that I've used in the last 6 months would cover all of those categories in a fairly heavy-duty application. But most importantly, how has it performed? Unlike my 120X battery, the 120X Pro is in much better physical condition. There is no warping of this top orange plastic cap, and to be honest, no warping of any part of the body. Apart from the fact that it's very dirty and muddy from some of the four-wheel drive tracks we've hit, it appears to be in as new condition. And this is because in the last 6 months, it has not been removed from the vehicle, which means that other mechanics have not had the chance to over-tighten that mounting bracket on such a lightweight battery, and therefore the top cap is in great condition. There's no signs of breaks, cracks, fatigue marks, or anything else that would cause any concern. Now, of course, this battery is IP67 waterproof rated, and given the good condition of this casing, I have no doubt that it still lives up to that expectation, and have only just recently tested it out on the Cape trip. Having a look at the terminals here, they are also in good condition. They are holding strong and fixed in their positions. The threads are still in good condition, have not stripped, and of course there is no corrosion. Now, as I have with all of my lithium batteries, I run this heat shielding material, which unfortunately I can't remove in today's video because I have nothing to replace it with out on the road. But I will say that this new branding of heat shielding that I'm using on this newer model has performed a lot better and definitely stood up to the test of time, and the conditions in that engine bay are a lot better than my old previous 120X. Enough waffling on about how we've used this battery and the physical appearance. Let's get onto some of the technical and real world data, and that is of course the much anticipated and most popular capacity test. This particular test not only shows us how much capacity it has remaining, but gives us an idea about how quickly those cells inside are degrading given the use and conditions we put it through. Now, this battery, the 120X Pro, is listed at 4,000 cycles at a complete discharge and 8,000 plus cycles at 50%. So given that we've drawn just under 9,000 amp hours over the course of 6 months, we wouldn't hope to see too much cycle life or capacity degradation. An interesting point to note about the 120X Pro is that it is listed or rated at a 120 amp hour capacity. However, when I tested it brand new 6 months ago, I received 132 amps. Now, I also have spoken about my testing equipment in detail in previous episodes, but we're going to be using this battery discharger to take out 10 amps every hour until completely discharged, which is identical to the way in which I've tested all my batteries, and this unit brand new, everything except for, of course, the environmental factors, which were not too dissimilar anyway. 12 to 13 hours later, and the battery is completely discharged, and we have our results. The discharge curve is exactly what we would expect, remaining at the low 13 volts and high 12 volt range until that last portion of the test, at which point that curve drops off dramatically until it reaches its cutoff voltage. Comparing this with the brand new battery 6 months ago, we can see an almost identical discharge curve. The 120X Pro brought in a total of 129 amp hours of capacity. Now, there's two very important things to note about this test. Firstly, we've lost 3 amp hours of capacity, which equates to just over 2% of the total capacity. Now, if we lose 2% every 6 months moving forward in these conditions, then we're only going to get 3,816 cycles from this battery on paper. Obviously, towards the end of that, the battery is going to be almost completely useless. But what we're seeing here is although it still leaps and bounds above traditional chemistries, it might not make those quoted figures. Keeping in mind though, we're also assuming a very linear degradation. This brings us on to the second interesting point about this test, and that is, of course, that although we have lost 2% or 3 amp hour capacity from this pack, we still haven't dropped below its listed or its quoted rated amp hour capacity from new, being 120. So we're still 9 amp in the green. Now, I know that we're obviously going to be paying more attention to the degradation rather than the on paper rated specifications, but if we do have that linear degradation and we lose 2% every 6 months, then it's going to be 2 years of using it in these very harsh conditions before we see this battery actually drop below its brand new quoted capacity. So there is that to keep in mind as well. I'm not going to speculate too much, but I really doubt we're going to see a very linear degradation on the cycle life of these cells. But this is something that I plan to test over time. We still have a great capacity rating coming from this battery 6 months on, given its conditions and its mounting location. So this brings us on to performance and charging. Now, I don't have any specific tests that I use to measure the efficiency of the way in which the cells accept a charge, but I can talk about my experience, and that's using a generic DC-DC charger in the vehicle. Now, for me, I use the Redarc BC-DC 1240D charger with a lithium profile to charge up while we're driving. And on paper, theoretically, we can bring in up to 40 amp of charge, but realistically, in a real-world application, we see the mid to low 30 amps. Now, some of you with a keen eye may have also picked up on that Victron app that my discharged energy is quite a bit greater than my charged energy, which essentially means that I've actually taken more out of this battery than I've put back into it, or at least via the shunt anyway. And the reason that is the case is because from time to time I use this Victron Blue Smart charger as well to directly charge the battery, and of course this will bypass the shunt and therefore won't be recorded on that app. Now, this charger here does have a lithium profile and charges at a max rate of 15 amps too. And the reason I've had to do that is because we've pushed this battery so hard in the last 6 months. There have been times when I've had to charge it directly from either the camper or the Bluetti power station in between drives or during the day. Now, it should be noted that generally, in my normal routine, I would not have to outsource my charging to an external charger, but it's just because we've been pushing this battery so hard in the last 6 months that I've needed to bring in some extra power from other sources in between some of those heavy discharges. But what I can say is that at no point during the last 6 months has this battery ever failed to take a charge or have had any sort of issues that have any reason for cause or concern. So I've been very happy in that regards. Now, the criticisms and doubts will still flow in the comment sections of these videos. I'm told every single video when I talk about these products that I'm wasting my time and my money, and lithium batteries just aren't designed for under-bonnet use. But yet, year after year and test after test, here we are still testing products that have never let me down. The biggest advantage for me is that these lithium batteries offer me opportunities that I just simply couldn't achieve with a more traditional chemistry, and don't waste space in the back of my wagon four-wheel drive. Now, some will argue that the cell degradation is just not acceptable for a $1,000 lithium battery, but there's a couple of things you have to keep in mind. First of all, I am mounting this battery in the harshest possible location in this four-wheel drive, obviously being the engine bay. It is exposed to all of the elements and extreme heats and conditions in that location. Would it be better in the back of the four-wheel drive? I have absolutely no doubt, but iTechWorld warrant and say that this battery is suited for this type of application. Therefore, that's how I'm going to test it. Secondly, this is a $949 battery. You could buy several of these units for one name brand competitor, most of which won't be rated for this type of application regardless. So even if this pack only lasts me 2 to 3 years, I could probably get 6 to 9 years of life replacing this periodically when compared to one name brand competitor. And finally, the capacity is not the sole reason that many of us buy this chemistry of battery for our four-wheel drive. The much lighter weight of the pack, the higher charge and discharge values, the peak performance values, and the longevity are just some of the other benefits that we achieve from running a lithium setup. Now, does the iTech 120X Pro have its negatives? Absolutely, like everything, it sure does. But it also offers great value for its price point. And some of you may have remembered that a little while back I issued out a lithium challenge for those haters and critiques to find a battery that could outdo the current setup I have at the price point. And I can say now, even at months on, that nothing has been put forward that will on paper either equal or outperform my current setup. So that's something to keep in mind. In conclusion, this is a budget lithium battery, but it is a budget lithium battery that is designed, built, and more importantly, warranted for use in the engine bay of your four-wheel drive. For me, it's worked quite well and still packs great capacity. Even in rough and unforgiving terrain, it still continues to perform and power the fairly comprehensive and demanding electrical system in my setup. Now, there may be other brands out there on the market that do hold their cell longevity just that little bit longer, but I'm yet to see unbiased tests from brand new to used down the track that have used the pack in similar testing situations and, more importantly, similar mounting locations. So I think it's a bit of an unfair comparison. Now, before you write me off as an undercover iTechWorld advertiser, do remember that I am not sponsored, I am not paid, and I am not endorsed to do these videos. I've turned down that affiliate marketing program so that I am not paid, and therefore removes any incentive to try and sell these units through this YouTube channel. In fact, there's a small part of me kind of hoping that this battery does fail, because we all know that clickbait thumbnail and text will definitely perform a lot better than this video. But until then, all I can speak about is my experience and the testing that I've conducted. The goal here is to provide the most accurate and reliable information that I can to all of the viewers, because obviously you're potentially interested in upgrading or changing to a lithium setup in your vehicle too. And the hope is that these episodes are able to educate you to make an informed decision as to whether or not this particular unit or a lithium setup in general is going to be suited to your needs. We all have very vastly different requirements for our demands while we're out on the road. Is the 120X Pro suitable for you? Well, I don't know, but hopefully this episode has given you some ideas and helped you make that decision. But until next time, we'll see you next time on Exploring Oz.